Our final speaker today is Dr. Grace Williams. Grace is an independent artist, lecturer, and researcher based in London. Her work uses archival material to explore feminist power dynamics in the history of magic, mythology, and the occult. Grace holds a PhD from the Birmingham School of Art and has lectured at Birmingham City University, De Montfort University, the Royal College of Art, Glasgow School of Art, and currently works as part of the Sackler Research Forum here at the Courtauld. Welcome, Grace.
In recent years, the idea of human history approaching what is known as a singularity, thanks to increasingly rapid technological advancement, has moved from the realm of science fiction into a more serious debate. By analogy, a singularity in human history would occur if exponential technological progress brought about such a dramatic change that human life as we understand it came to an end, a modern-day apocalypse. Machine learning has already proved itself to be a viable technology, and its application in many domains, including military, are increasing every day. We know too well that the same methods that manipulate what and how we buy online can in the same stroke be used to control which news outlets we follow, whose opinions we trust, and even which politicians we vote for. The trend of collecting and learning from data to help us make sense of an increasingly complex world somewhat washes over the uncontrollability at the core of AI's development. As Murray Shanahan, Professor of Cognitive Robotics in the Department of Computing at Imperial College London states, when the thing being engineered is intelligence itself, the very thing doing the engineering, it can set to work improving itself. This feeds into what Ray Kurzweil, the American inventor and futurist, describes as the law of accelerating returns. An area of technology is subject to this law if the rate at which it improves is proportional to how good the technology is. In other words, the better the technology, the faster it gets better, yielding exponential growth over time. Intelligence, whether artificial or human, is subject to the law of accelerating returns. How, then, could we hope to control a super-intelligent AI, a system capable not merely of matching humans in every domain of intellectual affairs, but outwitting us at every turn? From here to a technological singularity is a small leap of faith. With such an ominous discourse, it is easy to forget that our contemporary understanding of robotics and AI emerges from a more innocent past. The human desire to play God is reflected in humanity's age-old obsession with moving dolls and musical automaton. The mechanic simulation of life as a preoccupation for master craftsmen, clockmakers, engineers, and mathematicians through the centuries provides a unique starting point on the road to modern-day machines. In the Smithsonian Institution is a 16th century automaton of a monk. Made of wood and iron, it stands at just 15 inches in height. Driven by a key, the monk walks in a square, striking his chest with his right arm, raising and lowering a small wooden cross and rosary in his left hand, turning and nodding his head, rolling his eyes, and mouthing silent prayers. From time to time, he brings the cross to his lips and kisses it. Incredibly, after 400 years, this enchanting automaton remains in good working order. In the history of European clock technology, the monk is an early and very rare example of a self-acting automaton, one whose mechanism is wholly contained and hidden within its body. In 1560, when the clockwork prayer, as it's known, was first displayed, audiences were aghast at such witchcraft. But by the 18th century, the phenomenon of mechanical movement resulted in a veritable golden age of the philosophical toy. Jacques de Vaucanson's magnificent creations are perhaps the most well-known in this genre. Labelled by Voltaire as a new Prometheus, like the Greek Titan, he had the power, it seemed, to create life, to fashion men out of new materials. Vaucanson's earliest mechanical toy was the automaton flute player, exhibited on February the 11th, 1738. The price of entry was 3 livres, which was approximately a week's wages for a manual labourer. Vaucanson demonstrated the objects himself to groups of 10 to 15 people at a time to great success. The figure was made of wood and painted white to look like marble. It was life-size, around 5.5 feet tall, and was supported by a large pedestal. The flute, as Verkansen had learned from his musical acquaintances, was considered one of the hardest instruments to play in tune. Notes are produced not just by fingers and breath, but by varying amounts of air blown into the flute and differing shapings of the lips. He had set himself an apparently impossible task, and emerged with a machine that could play 12 different melodies. The virtue of this flute player was that Verkansen had arrived at those sounds by mimicking the very means by which a man would make them, or a woman. There was a mechanism to correspond to every muscle. 9 bellows were attached to 3 separate pipes that led into the chest of the figure. Each set of the 3 bellows was attached to a different weight to give out varying degrees of air, and then all pipes joined into a single one, equivalent to a trachea, continuing up through the throat and widening to form the cavity of the mouth. The lips, which bore upon the whole of the flute, could open and close and move backwards or forwards. Inside the mouth was a movable metal tongue which governed the airflow and created pauses. This automaton breathed. Unfortunately, the original no longer exists, but you can see here an android clarinetist built in 1838, which was very closely based on Verkansen's design and is now in the John Gauguin collection in Los Angeles. Verkansen had designed 7 levers corresponding to the fingers, but although the actions were all correct, the sound was not quite right. He discovered that wooden fingers could not play a metal flute the way a man or woman could. The machine just was not soft enough. So he looked around for a material that would accurately simulate the effect and found it. Verkansen was a glove maker's son, and he decided to cover the android's fingers with skin. And here's a short example of a type of sound created by these wind instrument automaton. This is in fact the flautist, which is also a life-size flute player, created by A. Thoreau and taken from the Guinness collection in the Morris Museum. In 1739, Verkansen introduced 2 other machines. One was a pipe and drum figure, which you can see on the far right, which played the pipe at a speed faster than any living person could achieve. The other was a mechanical duck. What was remarkable about this duck was that it ate food out of the exhibitor's hand, swallowed it, digested it, and excreted it, all before an audience. It became Verkansen's most famous creation. It was made of gold-plated copper, but it was the same size as a living duck. It could drink, muddle the water with its beak, quack, rise, and settle back on its legs, and spectators were amazed to see that it swallowed food with a quick, realistic gulping action in its flexible neck. Verkansen gave details of the duck's insides. Not only was the grain once swallowed conducted via tubes to the animal's stomach, but Verkansen had also had to install a chemical laboratory to decompose it. Interestingly, many years later, the magician Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin discovered that the digestion actually didn't function in the way that Verkansen had established. Instead, it was a premixed preparation of dyed green breadcrumbs. So, moving forward a few centuries, by 1948, British robotics pioneer William Gray Walter had invented robots Alma and Elsie. They were tortoise-like robots that were programmed to find their charging stations once they started running low on power. And I'm just going to show you a short newsreel clip which demonstrates Alma and Elsie in action.
In a simple villa on the outskirts of Bristol lives Dr. Gray Walter, a neurologist, who makes robots as a hobby. They are small, and he doesn't dress them up to look like men. He calls them tortoises, and so cunningly have their insides been designed that they respond to the stimuli of light and touch in a completely lifelike manner. This model is named Elsie, and she sees out of a photoelectric cell which rotates above her body. When light strikes the cell, driving and steering mechanism sends her hurrying towards it. But if she brushes against any object in her path, contacts are operated that turn the steering away, and so automatically she takes avoiding action. Mrs. Walter's pet is Elmer, Elsie's brother, in the darker vest. He works in exactly the same way. Dr. Walter says that his electronic toys work exactly as though they have a simple two-cell nervous system, and that with more cells they will be able to do many more tricks. Already Elsie has one up on Elmer. When her batteries begin to fail, she automatically runs home to her kennel for charging up, and in consequence can live a much gayer life.
I just can't help but love those newsreels. So just 6 years later, in 1954, George Devol invented the first digitally operated and programmable robot called the Unimate. This was off the back of one of his earlier inventions, the phantom doorman, which we today simply know as the automatic door. In 1956, Devol and his partner Joseph Engelberger formed the world's first robotics company, and in 1961, the first industrial robot, also known as the Unimate, went online in a General Motors automobile factory in New Jersey. With the development of electronics, the clockwork limitations of automaton and early robotics found new life and mass media appeal through the Walt Disney coined animatronics. Animatronics used cable-pulled devices to animate replicas of human or animal behaviours, bringing lifelike characteristics to an otherwise inanimate object. First introduced by Disney in 1962 for the film Mary Poppins, which featured an animatronic bird, the technology has become a mainstay of special effects for film and theme parks. The Walt Disney Company remains at the forefront of audio animatronic development, most recently installing the world's most advanced animatronic, a Na'vi based on James Cameron's Avatar, as part of Pandora at Animal Kingdom theme park Walt Disney World. So this is an audio animatronic on a boat ride. So this innocent tinkering in a shed interlude in the development of robotics soon transitioned into the slightly more terrifying realm of humanoids, resulting in the phrase the Uncanny Valley. Referencing Freud's uncanny, it describes the common unsettling feeling people experience when androids, also known as humanoid robots, closely resemble humans in many respects, but are not quite convincingly realistic. The Uncanny Valley also works as a hypothesized relationship between the degree of an object's resemblance to a human being and the emotional response to such an object. The use of the term valley denotes a dip in the human observer's affinity for the replica, a revelation that otherwise increases with the replica's human likeness. So examples of this can be found in robotics, 3D computer animations, and lifelike dolls. And this underlines many of the problematic discussions in the development of sex bots. And for anyone here yesterday, we obviously had a very astute philosophical understanding of this with Isabel Miller's paper. This uncanny resemblance to human characteristics is, however, completely absent in the final and most contemporary example that I will share as part of this presentation. That is the advancement of machine learning for military purposes. Boston Dynamics is an American engineering and robotics design company founded in 1992 as a spin-off from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It carries the tagline, "Changing your idea of what robots can do." Best known for the development of Big Dog, quadruped robot designed for the US military, the company has gone on to develop Spot, an indoor-outdoor mobile robot based on man's best friend, Handle, a manipulation robot for moving boxes, Pick, a vision processing solution that uses deep learning to enable building and depalletizing of mixed SKU pallets, Atlas, a parkouring humanoid still under development and perhaps one of the most terrifying, actually this is Atlas here, and Wildcat, the fastest quadruped robot on Earth, sustaining speeds of up to 32 kilometers per hour. The testing stages of these machines has drawn a huge audience through the company's YouTube channel, many going viral with headlines such as 13 terrifying real robots that will help the machines take over the world. But just how close are we to losing control? Well, when Ray Kurzweil published The Age of Spiritual Machines in 1999, which included his concept of the law of accelerating returns, he projected that by 2023, artificial intelligence would surpass the brain power of humans. So we might not be quite there yet. What is more likely is that we are in an age of implementation, one where technology starts spilling out of the lab and into the world. Some even suggest that at present the development of machine learning has actually started to plateau and that a singularity will never occur because of this natural tailing off. So in this paper, I have addressed a minor subsection of this huge debate, and by taking stock of the trajectory of machine development, this has completely sidestepped the advancements in neurotechnology and whole brain emulation that perhaps more pressingly may enact an apocalypse of the human race. So to bring to a close what has been a fascinating conference with thoughts on the future interactions with technology, human subjectivity and identity, it seems apt to quote from the science fiction craze of the 1950s. And forgive me for this, but with great power comes great responsibility. So thank you, Spider-Man.